Phineas and Ferb are back! And I'm not just saying that to drum up hype anymore. As you are watching this, there are new episodes of Phineas and Ferb out now with more on the way. The boys are back! Denial worked! I don't have to confront reality ever again! Seriously though, it is so surreal to see this show finally back on our screens for the first time in a decade. Yeah, unless you count the Alka Files special, the mini crossovers with Milo Murphy's Law, and the movie from 5 years ago. First time in a decade, we're back, baby! But was it all worth it? Getting philosophical pretty early on this one, but for real, after all these years of waiting, after making a yearly tradition of doing Phineas and Ferb denial videos on this channel, is this revival worth the wait? Well, let's just watch the damn thing and find out. This is no longer pretending Phineas and Ferb isn't over, because 7 years of denial willed it back into existence. The video. Man, I really will do anything to avoid using the word review, eh? Oh, hey, I'm grabbing the microphone. Before we start this video, I do want to say, one, if you enjoy these videos talking about Phineas and Ferb and all these new cartoon news stories coming out, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the little bell next to it. That way you don't miss any future videos. Also, as part of Matt, Pat, and Theorist's LoreFi project, I have released a new EP of 5 songs. They're all like lo-fi editions of the different Theorist theme songs, so Game Theory, GT Live, Food Theory, Film Theory, Style Theory, all of them. I'm really proud of them. You can go listen to them on Spotify or YouTube right now. I'll link them in the description. I would appreciate it. I'm really proud of my music. Unfortunately, recently they did announce that the story side of LoreFi is coming to an end, but the music stuff is still going, so if you want to listen to my music for LoreFi, I have an entire album out called Tape Recorder and the new EP of Theorist theme songs out on Spotify. Link in the description. Shut up. So, Phineas and Ferb's new season premiered on Disney Channel on June 5th, 2025, and came to Disney Plus the very next day. And this is the first new season of Phineas and Ferb since the original show ended back in 2015. And we all know Phineas and Ferb by now, or at least you should if you watch my videos. But because I refuse to leave out the uninitiated, two stepbrothers build crazy stuff and go on adventures with their friends to make the most of their summer break. Their older sister Candace always wants to get them in trouble, but their mom never sees anything the boys build. They have a pet platypus named Perry, who's a secret agent that fights the evil Dr. Doofenshmirtz. Rinse and repeat for 4 seasons between 2007 and 2015, and you got yourself a hit. Then let that nostalgia fester for a while thanks to people rediscovering the show on streaming, and boom, prime time for a reboot, revival, remake, whatever. And the new season kicks things off already with something I don't know if we've ever seen before: Phineas and Ferb in school. I think there's maybe like one episode where we've seen them in school, but I think technically they were out on recess, so this is like a first. Apparently they've spent the entire school year just recapping all the crazy stuff they did over their summer vacation, as they are literally recounting the season 4 finale in the opening scene. But then the bell rings and school gets let out for the next summer vacation, and as the inevitable opening musical number ensues, we can clock that little bit of lore that everything we're about to see takes place 1 year after the original show, confirming that this new season is in fact not a reboot, it's a revival. A conclusion I was also able to come to by watching this promotional rap song the creators made, where they literally say, it's not a reboot, it's a revival. Got it. Cool. So, Phineas, Ferb, and their friends Baljeet, Isabella, and Buford all team up to start their summer off by building as many crazy, impossible inventions as they can. And Candace, same as always, is hatching a plan to bust her brothers. And at this point, it's almost like Phineas and Ferb never left. The art style's the same, all the original voice actors are reprising their roles, except for like one. The original songs are just as good as you remembered. It's like we're right back in 2007. But of course, Phineas and Ferb's wacky antics are only half the story. And this is the bit I was most concerned about when I first heard about this revival. We all know and love Dr. Doofenshmirtz, his increasingly petty revenge plots to take over the tri-state area, his millions of tragic backstories, his super iconic voice, and the fact that he's actually a very good dad. He's hard not to love. And the show really worked to give him a happy ending back in season 4. After getting defeated by Perry daily, over and over and over again, Doofenshmirtz ends the original series by giving up his evil ways to become a good guy. And his daughter Vanessa was really invested in helping him realize he needed to change. Like, she could see that it wasn't making him happy, and it was actually harming their relationship. Plus, she managed to get an internship at Alka, the secret agency Perry works for, which would have made things pretty tense if Doof stayed evil, so Doof giving up his evil ways was a big step that really grew his character and gave the show the closing arc that it needed. And they even made a couple attempted spin-offs based around Doofenshmirtz trying to be a good guy. And then they shoved him into the second season of Milo Murphy's Law, where again, he was not evil. So I wasn't really sure how this new revival would handle the whole Perry Doof thing. And shocker, they just make Doof evil again. Like, they don't even make a big deal out of it. Doof just starts the show saying,
I'm so bored. And contractually we have 40 more episodes to do, so I guess I'm evil again.
And when Vanessa finds out about this, she says, and I quote, "Oh, so we're evil again? Try not to blow yourself up." Yeah, that's it. That's the whole thing. He just is evil now. And no one really acknowledges this for the troubling relapse that it is. I get the people making this revival just needed to return things to their OG status quo because, I mean, this is a nostalgia series at the end of the day. Most of the people watching don't care about Doofenshmirtz's character growth. They care about watching the platypus beat him up so they can feel like they're in 5th grade again. Which is fine, I guess, but I am a little bummed that one of the only real pieces of character growth and continuity from the original show has not only been completely thrown out, but no one in the show really seems to care. And Vanessa's internship at Alka is never brought up again, so I don't know, am I nitpicking here? None of this really harms the revival in any way, and I kinda knew they were just gonna return to the old status quo. But as a fan of this show, and as a fan of Milo Murphy's Law even, I was kinda hoping that a little bit more would be put into explaining this retcon. But of course, I don't know, maybe take this with a grain of salt. We do only have the first half of season 5 so far, and we already know a season 6 is on the way. So there's still every possibility that they could shine more of a spotlight on this if they wanted to. Something tells me they won't, but we can't completely count it out. Anyway, all that is just to say, this new show really takes things back to the good old days. Everything is just as you remember it, but also not quite. There are a few things I've noticed that set this one apart, at least from what I can tell. For one, it feels like they've really worked to raise the stakes. Like, obviously they'd want to start the revival off with a bang, but the first episode is about Doofenshmirtz creating a vaporizing ray and accidentally zapping Phineas and Ferb's mom with it. And the scene where she gets zapped and disappears is treated surprisingly seriously. It's a pretty abrupt tonal shift, honestly. And when it first got teased online, people were freaking out, like their mom just got shot or something. But no, she's alive, but vaporized, turned into an actual cloud of water vapor. But even still, making the first episode about having to save their mom from evaporating into nothing is a pretty intense way to kick things off. And the episode is really high action from there, with the mom cloud turning into this chaotic storm rampaging through town. Plus, the climax of the episode was really heartfelt. It was the kind of plot that would have worked for a Phineas and Ferb movie. All the episodes that followed weren't quite as intense as this one, but we still got some really high energy sequences out of them. Like the gang bouncing around town pretending to be geckos, then turning into a high-speed car chase as Candace takes her driver's test. There's entire sci-fi monster fights, Wild West adventures that for some reason are completely focused on teaching the viewer about forced perspective, okay? A return to the show's ongoing alien storyline with that little meep guy. It's not that these are some massive leap in scope from the original run of the show, but for just 10 episodes, the variety is pretty impressive. Like, very rarely is this season just sticking to the backyard and Doofenshmirtz's lair. There's way more locations, way more large-scale adventures, and it all just makes the revival feel more eventful. What else? Doofenshmirtz turns himself into a moth. Ew, this one was kind of gross. Yeah, there's a weird turn about halfway through these episodes where the show gets unexpectedly creepy. Like, Moth and Schmertz was already pretty gross and way more intimidating than I expected, but then there's Jesus Christ! Oh my god. Okay, so this episode is called The Candace Suit, and I don't think I've ever seen Phineas and Ferb do anything like this. Candace spends a lot of this series trying to understand the, quote, mysterious force that always makes Phineas and Ferb's inventions disappear before their mom shows up. And in this episode, Candace wants to get her mom to dress up as her to run an experiment to try and trick this mysterious force. But instead of just, borrowing her clothes and doing her hair up, they go to Buford's garage to sample his collection of wax body molds. Interesting bit of characterization there for Buford, but then they show the body molds, and legit, when this image popped up on my screen, the sound that I made was something like, oh, just a reaction of pure, unadulterated panic. I never thought Phineas and Ferb would manage to jump scare me like this. No horror game has ever caught me off guard as much as the Candace suit. And the rest of the episode doesn't really let up. They find a distressing number of Candace molds in Buford's collection, and everyone just starts trying them on. And they're all uncomfortably floppy in places, yet horrifically form-fitting in others. Someone on the writing team really just raised their hand one day and was like, okay, but on this one, well, we do something real messed up. Fun fact, this entire episode is actually a callback to the season 3 episode Doofapus, that's the name of the episode, where Phineas and Ferb invent a machine that can turn any solid into a liquid. Candace accidentally gets zapped by it, turning her into a puddle of orange Fanta, and in order to get her back to normal, they use a life-size mold of her body that Buford has. You know, in researching the origin of this joke, I really thought there'd be more of like an explanation to it. But no, it's just as random as I thought. Buford just has these, apparently. But what this does highlight, getting back on track here, is where this new revival season does give a nod to the show's overall continuity. Now, Phineas and Ferb isn't a plot-driven show by any means. It mostly sticks to its formula, delivering basically the same thing but different every episode. But over the course of its previous 4 seasons, to shake things up, they did introduce a few new things to mess with the status quo. And while some were retconned, doofenshmirtz, others have carried over into this new season to be further explored. Like in one episode of season 4, while fighting doofenshmirtz, Perry accidentally gets spotted by Candace's best friend Stacy, which is a huge deal because if Perry's family ever found out about his secret agent work, he would be forcibly removed from them and sent to a new home. Luckily, Stacy isn't actually part of the Phineas and Ferb household and promises to keep Perry's secret. So on a technicality, things get off pretty easy here. But in season 5, they actually start to play around with this new concept by turning Stacy into a Donnie Do-Good, meaning that if Perry ever needs help and Stacy's around, she basically becomes his partner in crime, which is actually a really interesting change. It allows the Perry and Doof stories the chance to raise the stakes even more. It'll put Perry in some actual danger for once, and it adds even more to what is essentially the show's juggling act of all its stories. Like, I don't know if this is just me, but it feels like the show is overlapping its storylines a lot more now. I already mentioned how many more out and about adventures we're getting this season, but with that, we're also getting way more tension when it comes to the whole angle of Perry having to keep his secret identity hidden. It feels way more common in these new episodes for the Perry and Doofenshmirtz plot to be happening in the exact same place as Phineas and Ferb stuff. Like, there's an episode where they take Perry to the vet, and Doof shows up, immediately getting mistaken for a vet, instead of a pharmacist for once. So Perry has to keep swapping between his identities in order to both evade and defeat Doofenshmirtz while still keeping up the act for Phineas and Ferb. Now, there's an episode where the family all hop on a cruise ship to go see the Northern Lights, and no pets are allowed, but of course Doof is on the ship too, so Perry has to sneak on. Now, throughout the episode with Stacy, Perry has to avoid being spotted by Candace because she's waiting tables at an event full of evil scientists. Again, it's not like the original show never did this, but it feels like it's become way more common. And my favorite example is episode 3, where Candace and Doofenshmirtz both start seeing the same therapist, who then cross-examines their sessions and puts together the whole thing, figuring out Perry's secret identity and all that. And he nearly spills the beans to an entire amphitheater of colleagues, including Candace and her mom. But of course, it all goes horribly wrong because we know nothing's ever gonna come of this, right? Like, in order for this show to keep going for another half of a season, plus the entirety of the already greenlit season 6, we know Perry won't get found out, we know Doof's not gonna win, we know Candace won't bust her brothers, all that. It's just not how Phineas and Ferb works. But I do appreciate that the show still seems to be exploring how far they can push the boundaries of its own formula. And nostalgia aside, it really does keep these episodes fresh and engaging, even after almost 2 decades. It has been 18 years, can you believe that? A few other new things that are less intense, but still notable. Candace's boyfriend, Jeremy, his voice is different now. He was originally voiced by Mitchell Musso, who you probably remember from Hannah Montana. Now, he's just voiced by Ferb's voice actor. And I mean, it's noticeable, but he still feels like the same guy to me. On a goofier note, the theme song got a quick little update. All of Phineas's little ad-lib lines have been re-recorded, which makes sense. Considering his voice actor was like 15 when the show first premiered, his Phineas voice has changed a lot now that he's in his 30s. And that classic opening line, there's 104 days of summer vacation, is now, there's another 104 days of some yada yada. And they even got Jared Reddick, the singer from Bowling for Soup, to come back and re-record just this one line. And, you know, that just makes my little pop punk heart happy. Do you know they actually do this song live all the time? They even brought the show's co-creator and the voice of Doofenshmirtz, Dan Povenmire, out at the Warped Tour recently to introduce the song. It was crazy. Anyway, yeah, they changed the opening line of the theme song. It's cute, but I guess they thought it would get old kind of quick because by episode 7, they just go back to the original opening. Honestly, I kind of wish they had just committed to it long term, but I get it. And lastly, there's the animation itself. Kind of an important thing to talk about for a cartoon. And you know, again, at a glance, it really does look like business as usual. It's bright, it's colorful, and the budget is clearly at least a little bit higher this time around. Everything just looks more modern, I guess. It's really hard to put my finger on it since I'm not an animator myself, but like the line work is kind of thinner in places, and the movement just feels a little more smooth in a way that I can really only describe as computery. And don't get me wrong, none of that is bad. I think the show looks great, but I could just kind of tell that this is definitely a more modern production using more modern technologies. It just has a vibe, which I doubt most people would even be able to spot unless they, you know, like me, were very recently rewatching the original seasons from 18 years ago. The only thing I could really say about the animation that's on maybe more of the negative side would be that it feels like the consistency from scene to scene is maybe a little wonky, which sounds worse than it is. I mean, there are some scenes in these new episodes that have far more fluid and detailed animation than I have ever seen in Phineas and Ferb, but then are quickly followed by scenes that just have a much more simple approach. I've noticed this in other like 2000s cartoon revivals actually, like the Invader Zim Netflix movie from a few years ago. That's a good example. The style of motion just feels different from scene to scene at times, and personally, I can find that a little distracting. But really, if my biggest complaint about what I'm seeing here is that some of the animation is too good, then I think we're gonna be alright. Last year, I made a big video deep diving into the original Phineas and Ferb series, along with everything we knew about the revival at the time, to try and explain why I was a little bit cautious about season 5. You know, I was worried about ideas running thin, retreading old ground, and the continuity hurdles of things like Doof becoming a good guy, while also acknowledging that Phineas and Ferb has always been in good hands, so I was really looking forward to having my doubts put to rest. And after watching these first 10 episodes, I'd say they've mostly done that. The show is good. It's very good. That's not even a question. Yeah, it has some quirks, and ultimately the Doofenshmirtz relapse is still my biggest disappointment, but understanding that I might be the only one who cares about that, what the rest of the show offers is actually a pretty remarkable mix of the nostalgic and familiar, with enough new elements and changes to the status quo to keep the show and viewers on their toes. Still working to push their classic formula further and see where they can go with it. And that has me very excited to see where Phineas and Ferb can go from here. It is a great start. And at least there weren't any of those damn bugs!